When we did our study, we found that the Gauteng province and the KwaZulu-Natal province were both, in fact, high when it came to remand and sentenced inmates, both males and females. And again, looking at our statistics, Gauteng, in fact, has got one of the highest numbers of inmates in the country. So it also has the higher number of inmates dying in that region.
Yeah, although the number of homicides that have been recorded is very low in terms of official on inmate, according to your study, it's about 4. It's still concerning. I mean, what kind of situation would lead to an official committing a homicide or on an inmate?
Yeah, that's correct, Mr. Moyani. In fact, the number has come down. At one stage, the number was around 11. For instance, now we've got 4 that we've recorded during the period. Some of the instances where you find officials end up killing inmates is where you find officials using excessive force, whereby you will find that an inmate maybe will have stabbed an official or will have stabbed other inmates. So officials will come in using force, but we find that they will use excessive force, and that will lead to, you know, the inmates dying as a result of the force that was used by the officials.
Yeah, inter-gang rivalry is also a factor from your report. The numbers are not as high as those who've died of natural deaths. I mean, one wonders, and from the outside, if anything is being done to prevent or manage the issue of inter-gang violence in our correctional services centers.
Yes, in fact, a number of years back, the department engaged in an anti-gang strategy, which they need to implement in some of the centers.
Is it paying off? Is it paying off?
Because you find
Is it paying off? Is the strategy paying off?
I think it's paying off in some centers, but we also have to acknowledge that in some regions you find that there is gangs that are outside of the centers, that are operating out of the centers. So when these inmates get arrested, so they continue their rivalry inside of the correctional centers.
Yeah, no, currently, I mean, we know the view of the government is that any death recorded in a correctional facility does hurt the institution. I mean, it is one death too many. From your studies and your survey and stuff as a JICS, are you picking up that the efforts that are being made overall are workable solutions to try and stem the tide of deaths, whether natural or unnatural, in our prisons?
Yes, we have picked up that some of the efforts by the department are working, but we have to say again that, you know, some of these incidents happen at night, some of them happen during the day, but when you look at some of our correctional centers, some of these correctional centers were built a long time ago, so it's not also even easy for officials to get to these matters, especially the homicides, to look at these matters, because, you know, it's not easy to look at inside of the cell when they're doing patrol. And with, you know, with natural deaths, I think that as time goes, the department will probably come up with a strategy where they will eliminate where inmates, you know, are getting proper treatment at the centers.
Okay, finally, from this latest survey, is the trend going down? I mean, in terms of these deaths, are we seeing a decline year on year in terms of the inmates who are dying in prison?
Yes, in fact, that's quite correct. There is a decline. If I can just take you back, I think around 2000, 2001, 2002, that area, it was a situation where you had almost 1,400 inmates dying of natural deaths in correctional centers. That number has in fact decreased significantly to around 400 at the moment. You will see when we release our annual report soon that those numbers have in fact decreased to around 400 for natural deaths.
Okay, Professor Muhlaba, thank you very much. He's, of course, from the Judicial Inspectorate of Correctional Services, just giving us the latest in terms of the stats of inmates who die in our prisons currently, whether natural causes or unnatural causes like homicide.